Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango.
Everybody, welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. It is my pleasure to be here with, in my opinion, the most underrated high flyer to ever put on a pair of wrestling boots, Jack Evans. Welcome to the program, brother.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? It's been forever and a day, dude.
Yeah, it has been a minute, man. It has been like I haven't seen you since Stampede.
Yeah, so I'm like, we're talking almost 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, lots has changed, man.
Yeah, living in Mexico now. Freaking yeah.
How's that? Okay, let's talk about that for a second. How's living in Mexico? Do you dig that or what?
Oh yeah, I love it. I know on the news in America, you'll only get like the bad news, and not that like it doesn't have problems, but for the most part, day-to-day living in Mexico is completely different than what I think most people think it is. So yeah,
Right.
It's great down here.
Nice. What do you like? Do you have a day job down there? Or are you just still wrestling full time?
Nope, just still wrestling full time.
Good
So
for you, man. Well, I was looking and you still have lots of bookings. Like,
yeah. Oh, thank goodness. Because I just got released, I was worried about that. I was like, oh no, what's going to be happening? But thank goodness I was able to fill up some bookings pretty quick.
well, timing's kind of everything, right? Like if you get released 2 years ago, or you're freaking stuck. But fortunately,
Oh, I can't even imagine. So I was actually very fortunate because they even closed the border from Mexico to America for 4 months.
right.
So if I left, I couldn't come back. And I was like, I can't leave my family. So like I essentially couldn't wrestle for 4 months, and AEW still kept me. So I always love them for that, because I was
That's
thinking
cool.
like they're just gonna for sure release me. Like
Yeah, that's good. They stood by you like that. That shows a lot of character.
yeah.
Unfortunately, they didn't re-sign you, which is disappointing.
Yeah, but I've already, like you said a couple times, I completely understand where they're coming from on that one. So it's not like this, like heart. Well, no, I don't want to say not heart, but like it's sad. Obviously, wanted to keep a job like that, but
For sure.
it's not something where it's like I feel like I got screwed somehow.
Well, they've signed so many guys. Like I don't know. I can't even keep track anymore, man. Like I don't know how.
It is a giant roster now, so. You know what I mean? Like it's just business. Cuts do have to be made.
Well, and you signed really early on, like when kind of as soon as you were. Correct me if I'm full of shit, but you were in one of the first crop of signings of guys.
Yeah, I think they had like 1 or 2 pay-per-views before I signed or something. Like the company did. I wasn't like one of the very first, like ground zero, like Young Bucks or something like that. But like I was there forever, like before their first TV started and everything. So.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. And I mean, getting to tag on national TV. Now, here's where I get hung up. Is it Angelico? Because I hear people say Angelico, and for some reason, it just sounds shitty to me.
I always say Angelico because that's what they call them down here. But in the States, basically Angelico. But down here, they say the G with like a hey, like Helico. Like,
yeah, I like the soft G, man. I like that way better.
Yeah, I think it sounds better as well. And I'm so used to it now that like. Calling him Angelico is like just like Angelico. I don't yet. Just it's awkward for me. Well, I've always stuck with him.
Yeah, not to piss on the way anyone talks. I'm sure I have a lot of my own idiosyncrasies, but when I hear people say Angelico, it's like it just doesn't sound right. Because I'd never heard of him called that until I watched some other podcast that they were talking about, and I was like, oh man, they're saying that wrong.
Yeah, no, I feel it there too. Like obviously, like you said, like everyone wants to pronounce it, they can pronounce it. But I just think it just flows so much better, especially Rudo Rivera when he was still alive. Like you just hear him say, Angelico. Like I don't know, it had this like ring to it that Angelico is it doesn't roll off the tongue the same way. So everyone out there, we need to get on this action. You know why we're taking a stand right now. No more of this Angelico BS. It is now Angelico. 100%.
I'm with you. I will actually clip this part. We will make this part go viral. No more Angelico. Angelico, not or nothing, but Angelico it is. Yeah, that's one thing that's always kind of struck me. So, man, like, so yeah, we worked in Stampede. You know what? I remembered something the other day. I only worked you in a couple of matches. Like, I remember you were kind of just starting out and Bruce fired us in a ring. I don't know. I think they were tag matches with Teddy, and
Yeah.
I gave you a shoulder tackle, and you kind of were the first guy that ever kind of hit. I gave you a shoulder tackle, and you actually did a full moonsault onto your stomach onto the mat.
Yeah, I like back in those days, I like for some reason I just thought every bump needed to be exaggerated to the maximum extent. So I took shooting star bumps off everything. Like
I
so
remember saying to
I
you in the back,
had,
like, "Hey, man, I really appreciate it, but you don't got to sell that hard for me." Like,
well, and it kind of did like it. Now I know like it takes away from it because you know what I mean. If you take a shoulder tackle and then someone gives you a clothesline, take the same way, and someone does a drop, you know what I mean. Like so,
yeah,
I learned now to like save those for like bigger moves or whatever. But no, I totally back then. I took more shooting star bumps than back bumps. Like it was just off of everything. Like I thought I was doing it right there. Like exactly like you said. Like I was like I'm putting everybody over all the time, and like in
oh yeah,
reality, it
man.
actually kind of,
Yeah, I don't
not
think
the opposite.
anybody, I appreciate anybody that ever sold for me, but nobody ever sold for me like that.
Man, right when my friend Jordan was like, "Oh man, this dude wants to get you on the podcast." I was like Durango, and then like it brought back a flood of Stampede memories. It was a weird time, but there was some good memories there too.
Yeah, there was a lot going on back then, man. There was,
Yeah,
it was we were all running. I think we all might have been running a little wild back then.
yeah, it was, and man, people don't realize the dungeon at that time was a weird atmosphere depending on who was there.
Oh,
Because do you
yeah.
remember the guy? I don't know. You might have not been going at this time because it was towards the end. But a guy who was a backyard wrestler from Newfoundland showed up, and Bruce, day after day, would just make the entire practice. Like Bruce hated him for some reason, Bruce Hart, and so he'd make the entire practice,
Oh,
chop practice,
oh
for like a week
shit.
straight until the guy left. But I'm talking like there were days where I've never seen a chest like this. And like even in Mexico in
Really?
AAA, this thing called the baptismo, like the baptism. And like anyone new to the company, like everyone gives them a chop or whatever, and someone get ripped. But it's not like it's not all crazy, you know what I mean? This was like pounded meat, and like by the third or fourth day I was like, how is he
Really?
still doing this? And he went for like 5 days in a row every day, and I'm talking he must have taken over 1,000 chops over the course of that week before he
Oh
left. I've
no.
never seen like that. So like when people always ask me about the dungeon, is like, A, I didn't actually show up that much if we're being truthful,
Right.
and B, the dungeon 100% depended on who was there. Because if it was someone that Bruce decided he didn't like, it just became torture that guy day. Like I don't.
And
So,
you know what?
but
So, I probably don't. I definitely don't remember that guy, but I remember a couple of guys that, yeah, like you hate to say it, but some guys you could kind of tell were going nowhere fast, and so
yeah,
the practices for whatever reason it just get ratcheted up intensity for the next little, month or so until that person just decided it wasn't enough. That was enough.
yeah. They were like that.
Yeah, it could be
Like
fucking ruthless down there.
it could be.
Well, and
It
that's something I
really
actually
could be.
wanted to ask you. Like, you seen the dungeon somewhat, and I think you were around Mat Rats too a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
what was so then you go to Dragon Gate to their dojo or their training facility. What would be the big differences there?
With the Dragon Gate, the biggest difference was with the young boy, like with once you got a gimmick over there, like it was different, like still to practice or everything
Right,
and everything. But when you were like a young boy, like where they'd only let you wear like like the white or black boots and sort of like you couldn't even have a gimmick,
right.
they would run them ragged with exercises.
Is that
So
right?
those
Hey?
Dragon Gate guys, I'm talking like they could do in a day like 1,000 squats, 1,000 put, and that sounds like an exaggeration, but I'm not even kidding you. Like just random ragged physically. So it wasn't as much. There's never like I mean, obviously they did chops and stuff, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like there's never chop practice or like these ribs going on. Or well, actually, they would with the young boys a lot, but some of them kind of do. That's a lie, but nothing like like the like man, I still can't believe what they did to that Newfoundland guy. I can't remember his name, but
Was it like Sailor? Fuck, there was a guy they were calling him like not like Bruce called him like Seaman White.
Yeah. There's Seaman White. Do you remember Bruce's all his names? And there was Headmaster Yates.
Oh man,
Seaman
what?
White. Man,
There was a
actually,
time.
Headmaster Yates. Ted played like the worst trick on me in the world. I don't even call it a rib. Is I was in the back and I had my man. I'm usually first or second or whatever. Because like you say, I was just starting out. And Ted kept running in, and like how good of an actor he can be. Was like, Bruce is so pissed at you. Why don't you out there? Why don't you out there? And I'm like, for what? For what? For the run in. For the run in. So
Oh
I go out
no.
there with Ted and do a run in on Headmaster Yates, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And then like
Probably Ruffy Silverstein, I'm guessing.
uh-huh.
Probably Ruffy Silverstein.
I think I came a little bit after Ruffy. I remember meeting him
Okay.
only a couple times, but no, I didn't. I don't think it was him. But
Headmaster
Headmaster
Yates.
Yates, who was the guy? He used to wear an orange like convict like jumpsuit.
Oh, that was Yates, man.
Okay, that was Yates. Well, okay,
Yeah.
well, who's the had the teacher gimmick? I thought that was it.
Oh, that was
Wait,
Principal Pound. Richard
Principal
Pound.
Pound and Headmaster
Yeah,
Yates.
Dick
That's
Pound.
it. That's it. And so I went out there. We're doing a run in, beating them, and then like kind of no selling and getting all pissed. And then they just like march off to the back. They didn't even like finish the match or nothing. And then Bruce was all pissed at me and everything. It was the last time I ever saw him in a Stampede show. I think they quit after that.
Oh
Ted
shit.
completely lied to me. He just wanted to be like whatever, and so he ended up convincing me to do what was an unannounced run-in on these guys. So like they were
Seriously.
so pissed, and like I couldn't understand why until after I got to the back and Bruce was yelling at me, and I put two and two together. Like, oh man, Ted just BS the hell out of me.
That is
So
wild. Now,
yeah,
what
I
did
still
Ted
can't
say
believe it.
after? Because I mean, Ted has a wild sense of humor. Like I could see him just thinking that was hilarious.
No, for the first like night, yeah. Afterwards, you thought it was hilarious, but the first night, he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You're getting me heat." I was like mad at him, and he was hard selling it that Bruce was lying and that Bruce did want him to do that,
Really?
and it was Bruce that was ribbing me, not then. Like, so like, but eventually he did think it was the funniest thing ever. But like the next day, but like there's like and like I said, like this must have been like maybe I was in the double digits, maybe of total matches had, like super,
Seriously,
yeah,
just
yeah.
breaking in.
And then like there I am, and like two of the vet like quit. I never saw him again after that, and I was like, oh my god, like what is he doing to me? Like oh. So that's one of the big standout memories of the Stampede for me
That's
was this
wild.
unannounced run-in. And like, oh man, they were so pissed and no selling me. And at one point, like I got pushed like almost like a legit like push, like almost on my ass style, like flying back. I'm like, what the hell are these
Jeez.
guys doing? Why are they selling the run-in? And then when they started yelling at me in the back and everything, and Bruce, it turned out to be an unannounced run-in just because Ted
And
wanted honestly to be a prick. I don't even think he did to be funny. I just think he didn't like those guys, and like he wanted a partner in crime. Like
he just hated that match and wanted to end it.
yeah, something.
You
I
know
don't
what?
know
I
what
know
was
somebody else, and I'm not just gonna hang Ted on that. I know somebody else in Stampede that did not in the same, like not with the same people, but I know somebody else in Stampede that did the same thing. I call it the gorilla run in.
the gorilla running.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a little the rules. I'm talking a little better than the unannounced running, like
Yeah.
the gorilla running.
Yeah,
But
just
yeah,
out of
no
nowhere
man.
running in. Yeah. Had a few drinks after his match, got a little buzzed up, and was like, yeah, this is shit, and ran in and interfered in the match.
That's actually funnier though. For some reason, because that just sounds like maybe that match needs to be ended. The one weird one, like it probably wasn't even a bad match. Like we're probably, I really think that Ted just decided, like, hey, let's just ruin this shit, or let's just ruin this. Like,
That's hilarious. Well, thing is, that's just, and I'm not shitting on Ted because Ted has a, like, if you understand, Ted's a hard guy to understand. So to say like, oh, I understand what he was thinking, forget about it. But to me, there's still like, I still sort of see the humor in that. Not that it got you heat, but I still sort of see like, yeah, that's Ted. Like, I
but
can
no,
see him
that's the
doing
thing.
that.
I get it. Is like it got me heat for that night, and then like it was just forgotten about. Like the next Stampede show, whatever it was, like it just didn't even matter. Or like
Yeah.
Or I
Well,
do remember the masked men when they used to show up and they'd always go after Ted. And like one
yeah.
time he jumped and like actually fought him. That ended up causing this whole thing, like commission, the whole deal.
Are you
And then it was just gone.
serious?
Like, yeah. And then it was just gone. Like, I don't know what, like, for some reason, Stampede those days, you could never get anything past like heat for one night, even if it went all the way to the top. Like,
Jesus. I remember losing my temper there a couple times, and I think between Ross and I think I quit or got fired at least 3 or 4 times. Like he just, just stir up so he gets so mad, act like a dick, and then come back the next show like, all right, let's go, forget about it. Let's get back to work.
Yeah, that was kind of the Stampede styles. I think if you had worked there at least like a year, you probably have been fired multiple times. Like that's just...
Yeah, it was a wild. And the thing is, we were like, I mean, for us, there was no real veterans in the locker room. You know what I mean? Like for you, I would have been one of the veterans in that locker room, and I hadn't really been anywhere, done anything, right? Like it's just like,
yeah, no, for me, like the only people, because man, not to diss them, but Bruce and Ross, well, Ross a little bit, Bruce, you couldn't really look at like a veteran because it just all depended on how he felt about you.
yeah.
Like I feel like Bruce could have, he was a well of information if he liked you, but if he didn't, he was kind of malicious. Like, so for me, there was like and actually, even though I know he hates me with that Principal Pound, Wavell Star, like those were the guys. Like I like, okay, they've been around. Like I'll listen to them or whatever.
Right.
But like, it was very hands off. Like you all, you didn't really. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's nobody leading the way, man. We just got our finishes and went and did our thing.
Yeah. Like that's exactly what it was to a huge extent.
Yeah. Well, it was like being, honestly, it felt like you were an open mic comedian every night in Stampede, because you never knew what was going to work. You never knew what wasn't going to work. You just went out there, threw shit at the wall, and some nights went back like, okay, well, that was the shits.
Yeah. Quite a few times. You remember Neil Graham Mason? Man, like I had his like second or third match ever, and like
right.
at that point I must have been like 20 matches in maybe, and so it was one of those times where it's like, man, I hope the footage of that match has been lost, because it was one of those things, like you said, with there's no one to lead us, and like it was a weird situation where I can't even really pull vet status now, for being honest. Yeah, but back then I had no clue what the hell to do with this guy. So that was one of my worst matches ever. like you said, and there's no one leading the way. Like there's no real agent. Bruce kind of give you a finish and then just do whatever. And then like Ross a little bit actually.
Ross would at least come to you afterwards and kind of give you a little guidance after, what you could do better.
I think we should have done this. We should have done that. Like, yeah, but
yeah, like as far as like character formation or how to cut a promo or just like nothing. Like
open mic night. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. That's exactly what it was. Open mic night.
Yeah, it was. And
wild. Then at one point, do you remember Apocalypse? Oh man, I can't remember the name of WWE, but Apocalypse, Dave Swift, and Ted. They kind of actually like, even though they weren't together, they like kind of started to take over the locker room and just mess with everyone. So like it turned into an animal house there for a little while. Like, oh man, there was one time I came back and all my stuff is wet, just completely soaked. And it just turned out that Dave Swift just decided to dump all this water. I was mad at the time, but then after, like, that's just kind of how he was. Like, he played these stupid ribs that were like,
oh yeah, man,
not malicious, but they were like not real ribs either. And then like, and then Ted, like, oh man, popping people's tires in the parking lot.
That's a mean rib.
Too much, like.
Oh Jesus. Yeah, that was, I never saw too much of that. I think because I was a little bit older, everybody sort of stayed away from me on that shit,
Yeah, a little bit. And just like not really stayed away from you, but I kind of feel like if you were in that 10 crew at the time, that people almost stayed away from you a little bit. Like, not necessarily you, but like people didn't interact with you as much because like, man, with all the hearts, not just Ted or like Bruce or anyone, but like you never knew what their reaction was going to be. So like you kind of just like, man, I don't want to do something wrong, get my tires popped. A Heart Family Special. The Heart Family Special, get the tires popped. Well, and that's... You remember Smith, right?
What's that?
Do you remember Smith Hart?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Man.
Yeah.
He one time, sorry, I'm not to babble. There was a guy.
No way, man. This is gold.
I think his name was. We both lived at the Hart House at that time,
right?
And he was like a maintenance man or whatever, and then like I just had one of the rooms. I was living there free, so I basically I had to do like housework and everything to like room and board style or whatever.
Right.
But Smith kind of used that as control over me, where he'd always threaten if I didn't do something, kick him out of he'd kick me out of the house, which I didn't have the clout to do. But you know how it works. And
Oh yeah.
but there was one time someone must have cut him off in traffic or something. I don't know what exactly it was, but he got me and Kevin down there, and I don't know where he got him, but he got these little knives that like the knife pokes through your knuckle and then there's like a grip on it like that.
Right.
And he drove us to the house of this guy that he was mad at and told us to pop the tires. When we got there, it's this big ass like truck on like suspension lifts or whatever it's called, and has these thick tires. So me and Kevin, we're sitting there trying so hard, and like we're just scratching the rubber. Like we could not, like I'm talking like mini monster truck wheels. We could not do anything. It's like, oh, you freaking idiots. Da, da, da. Like, I'm only an idiot because I listen to you. What the hell am I doing here trying to pop some guy's tires? He has a big ass monster truck. We have these little like fist knives that you gave us. Like
that
so
is
for some
wild.
reason, popping tires was like a Hart family special.
Holy
There's another one. We were going to a funeral actually, so I wanted to be respectful of everything. But again, that Dave Swift had pissed Ted off. He did something.
Right.
So Ted and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they got these tweezers and they went to his tire. You know where you put the air in the tire? How it has like that little like metal thing?
The valve stem.
Yeah, they just nonstop messed with it until they got that thing off all of the tires, and they all went flat. And I guess that without that thingy, you can't you can't fill them back up.
Yeah.
So after the funeral, Dave missed everything else because he had to sit, and it was way out in like Strathcona or something. I don't remember. And so he had to sit and everything, and like miss everything else after the funeral, all because he did something to piss Ted off. And Ted did not, I guess, popped his tires, but damaged them, and he had to wait for a tow truck and all this. Like, so like, yeah, don't mess with the hearts, or else your vehicle is in danger.
Yeah, holy shit. Wow. Okay, so when did you start? So you left Stampede. Probably sounds, by the sound of it, thank goodness.
No, I'm sorry. No, Stampede was a lot of fun actually. Like that whole time, I don't want to. But there's just.
But it was
like
chaos, man.
Yeah, it was chaos. It was the most chaotic time of my life for sure.
Yeah, it was. This territory was chaos at that time. Like, and that's probably one of the reasons I stayed away, is because I had a pretty normal life. Do you know what I mean? Like, by the time I would have met you, I would have been married. I had a job. I had student loans I had to pay off. Like, I was an old man already, and I was like 25.
Yeah,
man.
So
yeah. So then, where did you go after Stampede?
2004, 2005-ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, probably.
And then I started in ROH, and then I went to Dragon Gate, and then to Mexico.
Jesus. So you've been in Mexico for a long time.
Yeah, I've been in Mexico forever today.
Yeah. And so have you lived there that whole time, or was there a lot of travel back and forth, or you just said screw it and stayed there?
No, there was like a good, I want to say like 6 or 7 years, maybe a little bit less than that, like, but at least 4 or 5 years where I never came back. Like I just went and I just stayed.
Really?
Yeah.
Just left your stuff at your folks' house, or what?
Huh?
Just left your stuff with your parents and off you went?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because I lost my job in Japan, and I had a broken face, and like I had to get all the surgery and everything. So like I was totally like I had to move back in with my parents and everything. When Conan
really?
called me up, it was a bad time. It was bad. I had to move back with my parents because like it wasn't one of those things where I couldn't work like as just wrestling, where like except as a pizza delivery boy. That's like the only job I could get, so I couldn't afford anything. And like, I did the WSX show, and I bought this. It was such a stupid purchase, but I like just put a huge down payment on a Infinity G35, so my monthly payments would be lower. Right. But after I lost all my jobs and everything, I couldn't even afford like that, even though it wasn't like the craziest car payment, even though it was a pretty nice car.
I love those cars.
I love that car to death. It actually still exists. My parents still have it. It's underneath a tarp in my house.
Oh, really?
At their house. Yeah, they still have it because like like, man, I actually never paid him back for this, but I like borrowed, must have been a couple $1,000 or whatever to like finally finish paying it off and everything. And
Right.
like it's still around. It's still around, that car.
Geez, now you got me. What year is it, man?
I want to say what year was what year was WSX? Like, I want to say around 2004, 2005. So
Does it have the big
like
whale
not
tail on the
new.
back?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sick.
And like the Tiptronic transmission or whatever, where you could like switch it from either being manual or or not
Yeah.
manual but just automatic
Yeah.
into the steering wheel. Had like, it was the coolest thing ever. Where like the right one upshifted and the down what it like pedal, not, it's not a pedal, but you like lever or whatever. It was
Yeah.
like
Paddles.
downshift. Paddles. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that car. It was like a beauty to drive. But like now that I look back at it, I'm like, man, I can't believe I spent all my WSX money on this. And like it ended up backfiring. Like I hope my parents never watched this and realized I probably still owe them thousands of dollars for that. Like,
They're gonna sell your car, man.
but yeah, but then Conan called me and asked me to come down to Mexico because I met him in TNA a little bit, like a couple years prior.
Right.
And I went down to Mexico like once and I liked it. But the thing is, my first show in Mexico was in like Cancun or Playa del Carmen or something. So it was total beach city. So it was like what everyone imagined Mexico to be. And the second time I went down there was Mexico City, which Mexico City is nice and everything, but it's not what like it's like a temperate climate or whatever. It's not like this like tropical climate. There's no beach or
Okay.
whatever. So like I still love Mexico City, Chilango, para siempre. But like it it was definitely not Cancun or whatever. But it was that second time I came back after that for like literally like 4 or 5 years, maybe even a little bit longer, like for a very long time, over half a decade. I never came back to America.
That's wild, man. That's so. And then obviously you met your wife down there. Safe to assume.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So something I got to ask because I was kind of the first high flyer that was ever got on my radar was Blitzkrieg. So I got to ask this question. How did it come to pass that Blitzkrieg gives you his mask? Like, I don't want to come across like I know all his shit. That would be a lie. But he was the first guy. Like, I actually tried ripping off. He was the first person I tried ripping off one of his moves.
Oh yeah, no, well, man, for the short stint he was in wrestling, like he came up with so many like never been done moves or whatever you want to call it. Like in skateboarding, you know what I mean? They do a new trick and it's never been done.
Right.
Like that's what he did for wrestling. Like just every match was something new. So I loved him to death. And there was actually my boy, man, I got to get a hold of him. I've totally lost touch. Promoter from SoCal, named Anthony Maris, cool ass dude. He got a hold of him because he was living in SoCal, and he was just like, "Hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not wrestling anymore, and we got like your number one fan, basically. He's become a wrestler. We willing to give him the gimmick." And like he did, I like had the match, and then he came out after, and he handed over the gimmick and the mask and everything. But the thing is, it almost happened too early because I think now Lucha Libre is more popular in America.
Yeah.
But at that time, when I got the Blitzkrieg 2 gimmick, like I was fully committed to just switching over. That's what it was going to be. Like Jersey All Pro, ROH, like Frank Goodman's promotion, like they all wanted me as Jack Evans. And like, so the Blitzkrieg 2 gimmick, I've wrestled under only like 7 or 8 times. Like,
is that right, eh?
yeah.
Like, now, here's the thing, man. You were doing that kind of stuff too. Like, you were doing shit. You were like the first person I'd ever seen like stand on one hand. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'd never seen anyone do a 630, and I didn't see it. I think you were wrestling Ted, and you were like the first high flyer I had ever heard doing a moonsault off a U-Haul trailer. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I don't know if I was the first, but I do remember that. Yeah, it actually moonsault the full twist. So
yeah.
Get it straight, Duke.
Sorry, man. Well, I should have assumed there was a corkscrew. You don't do anything without a corkscrew. How did you learn how to flip? Trampoline?
Yeah, largely a trampoline. How it started, my sister was in gymnastics, and she taught me the back handspring, and like I just kind of took it from there because that became like my like my recess trick to honestly try to get like a teacher for little girls and stuff, like because I could do like back then.
Pretty cool trick.
Yeah, it was, because I could do literally, I'm talking like 11 or 12 of them in a row. So you can also have
Oh wow.
and then then it went into the back flip and then into the full twist and the half twist like that. So a lot of it actually came from just my sister teaching me the back handspring and me taking it
Wow.
from there. And then we got the trampoline, and I was one of the most trampoline obsessive kids there's ever been. Like I could just jump even to this day. Like if I take my kids to a trampoline park, I'm on it more than they are. Like so I just hours and hours and hours of it. And then also when I was 16, when most people like ask for a car or something, my dad's like just really good at building stuff. Like, and
Right.
he actually, man, I wish the ring was still around because it was such a good idea. But he built a ring for me because that's what I asked for my 16th birthday, because I was like, there's no way I'm getting a car. They can't do it. But like it was a really small one. I want to say it was like 14 foot or something. So you can imagine,
But
like,
still.
yeah.
Yeah. For
But
you, you were
he
bumping corner to corner in that ring for sure.
yeah, 100%. Like
Yeah.
even as kids, like if you do a suplex, like from the middle, like your knees are going into the ropes. Like it was very small, but
Right.
he didn't know how like to get any bounce in the ring, and he created like this ingenious contraption thing with uh like industrial strength springs or whatever. And
Right.
it was, I'm telling you, the softest ring ever for a little while. But then we didn't have a tarp or anything over it. And then that
Okay.
Washington rain came and it waterlogged the wood, and all the
Oh,
springs went down, and then they never came back up. And after that, it was stiff as hell.
gosh.
But when it was stiff like that, it actually made it easier to do flips and like jump off of.
Right.
So another big thing I did is I would take a rope from one corner and tie it to the other, and then I would just practice flipping over the rope and everything. Because like at that time I was watching Blitzkrieg, Sasuke, like all them. So like I was really like that was my thing. Is like I can't, because even actually how the trampoline was, if you I would try to put the trampoline against the ring so I could practice dives onto that. But those springs, and like if you fell short, you could actually there'd be a lot of problems. So that was like how I practiced dives. Was I just set up like a rope from corner to corner, and then I like jump over it, try to front flip or like
Jeez.
handspring, Sasuke special over it, like onto my feet or something. So then I think that helped me a lot too, because the trampoline, it translates a lot into wrestling, but
Yeah.
in the end, you do need to actually also practice like in the ring.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. No, come here, Cruella. You need to make a guest appearance. I got two bulldogs. They're the cutest things. Guest appearance. Guest appearance.
Hey. They're
Thank
excited.
you. Thank you. Oh, they're the wildest dogs, but they're still puppies, like 7 and 6 months or something.
Oh, is that right? Hey, just brand new.
Yeah.
That's
So
wild. So you got two little ones, what, under 10, right? Because how old's your daughter now? 6, 7, or 8?
my daughter's 7 and my son is 3.
And two puppies. You're a wildcat, man.
Yeah. Right now they're being cute, but there's actually sometimes I'm like, maybe we should get rid of these dogs. Like, oh man, they chewed up everything. Like, oh but no,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Everybody
Well,
wants
there's
to see.
some of them are like what are those things, like Boston Terriers or whatever? They're horrible puppies, but then when they grow up, they're cool, right? They're pretty chill.
Yeah, I think that's what it's gonna be with these bulldogs. Because I remember like Harry's bulldog, Mary Legs.
Oh
She was
man.
dumb as hell, but like she was cool. She wasn't that wild.
Are you
Oh
talking
man,
about the
I don't know.
older Mary Legs?
Yeah, the older one.
Yeah, she
She
peed
wasn't
in
that
his bag a
wild.
couple times.
Oh yeah, 100%. That was her thing. At
Yeah.
Sunday, she would hop up on a chair, hop up on the table, go to the edge of the table, and and trap off onto the floor. And you just walk in. You know they have those swinging saloon doors, and you just walk in. And there's Mary Legs. I don't know why she did it like that, but just boom, 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 boom. Like, oh man.
She would go nuts. Like if you got in a wrestling ring when she was around, she would go mental.
Oh, what? See, I remember her being like calm, but just like always like basically pissing and crapping everywhere. Like that's
Right.
my memory of Mary
Yeah,
Legs.
she was a wild dog.
But okay, well now, damn it! Okay, now I'm scared these dogs are gonna stay this way forever.
No, man, no, man. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. You know, your little kids will ground them.
Yeah, okay.
The kids will ground them. So you go down to AAA. I'm reading your bio, and I knew you were doing well in Mexico, but I didn't realize that you were like, the cruiserweight champion and a tag team champion at the same time. You were setting the world on fire down there.
For a little bit, like there was a lot of hey, doggy, calm down, calm down. There's actually a lot of stop and go for me in Mexico because, like, yeah, like for a little while it was like top of the world, setting the world on fire, and then I just kind of petered out uh and like went down on the card, and then I was getting this feud with Perro Aguayo, and I'm telling you that was like career making. Like, you want to talk about a great wrestler, smart wrestler, was him. But
Right, hey?
then, and I had fully understand why they did it, but I still hold a little bit of bitterness about it. My feud with Perro got canceled because they needed a big match at Triple Mania. And so they canceled it so they could start a feud with Perro and Cibernetico for the hair, which obviously is a much bigger match. Completely understand it, but like
But they love
like,
hair matches in Mexico.
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. But that like when I was like coming back up, kind of like that stopped all and halted all momentum.
Yeah.
And then like again, it wasn't like purposeful, anyone malicious against me. But like after that angle stopped, I didn't have anything after that. So there was actually like a couple of years where I was like just floating around as like random wrestler. You know what I mean? Like I had nothing, no storylines, nothing going on.
Right.
And then it was actually when Angelico came in and we got put together as a tag team, that then like kind of started to launch us. Like we got pretty over as a tag team again and popular.
Right.
So it was kind of like roller coaster-ish in Mexico. When I first got there, like I was doing really well, and then I just kind of like stuttered out because like people kind of see my shtick, and like it was based on like the high flying. Like I wasn't that crazy of a character or anything. Right. So after like my shtick had grown old, like I kind of stuttered out, and then like when I just love him to death, rest in peace. And then when Perro like literally was like launching my career again, and like he was getting me over because he was so over, and like I was like, man, this is going to be the worst feud ever for me because there's no way I'm going to get over as a baby face against Perro, even though he's technically a heel. He's like, you're super over. But no, he was just so smart in the ring. He knew how to tear in a crowd that loved him to death against him. Like it was like, man, especially in the smaller little Mexican towns and stuff, like he would be able to control them to the point where I would leave the arena as like a folk hero of that town for like getting a roll up victory, or even if I lost.
Hey.
But I'm telling you, he was like a star maker. If he wanted to get you over, he could. Like, he's an amazing guy. And but then that got canceled. And like I said, man, when that got canceled, there was just a couple of years where it was like one of those times. And again, nothing malicious against like Dorian or Conan, and I love them. But I just got lost in full. Like like that was gonna be my big angle. And then when that got canceled, like there was no backup plan. And then like they just like they forgot about me basically, but not in that like that sounds worse than it is, because it happens to most people.
Well, I think the fact you said more than once it wasn't malicious. I think that happens a lot, right? Where a guy, it kind of happened to you in Angelico and AEW, where you get there and you're doing really good things, and all of a sudden they start signing more guys and more guys and more guys. The next thing you know, you kind of start getting lost in the shuffle, right? And it's not not even intentional; it just sort of happens.
Yeah, 100%. And then again, like that 4-month layoff, because Angelico was I think he could have technically actually moved to America, but he didn't. So he was in the same thing as me, where like we kind of had our little like slightly comedic heel gimmick, and like they needed heels tag teams at that time badly too, because they're like Young Buck, like everyone was a face at that time,
right?
And like we had our niche almost as like kind of like almost like mid-card jobbers. Like we'd be like the lower card guys, but then like we'd be like a stepping stone for someone else when they were going to get a big feud with the Young Bucks or something, which was actually a pretty good spot to be in. Like in wrestling, what I mean? Everyone wants to be the main event or whatever, but
those are the gatekeepers, man.
Yeah, gatekeeper. Like it wasn't a bad position. But then that 4-month layoff happened, and it just like kind of killed all momentum on that. And then like so much of the card, by the time the borders back open and we were able to wrestle again, so much of the like who was face, who was heel in the card in general, switched around. And then
Right.
also, right when I got back, I had one match, and then I broke my face in practice before the match.
Oh
Like,
no.
not the worst, but I was out for almost 2 months, or maybe even a little bit over 2 months. And I swear, between that 4 month layoff and then like the 2 month layoff after one match, uh, like I just came back and like I just didn't have it anymore. Like I had grown so lazy, I wasn't training, like, and
Right.
so on top of being lost in the shuffle, I didn't have the skills to pay the bills at that
Yeah.
point.
You
And
weren't
like
hungry.
that kind of, I wasn't hungry. And then I said this online and the other day, but being on salary made me soft.
Is that
Because
right?
like
Hey.
it really did, because when you just have these checks coming in, you don't have to worry like, oh, I better impress them or I'm not going to get booked to get, when you don't have that feeling, like it was actually hard to keep the fire for me. It really was.
Huh.
So like I
Interesting.
gained, I blew up all the way to like 207 pounds from like 179 pounds, and like I
Really?
still had shirt on, yeah. So like I really fell off, and then like so towards the end of AEW, when I realized like, oh man, my contract's coming up, and in all honesty, I'm not worthy of a re-sign if we're going to be realistic.
Right.
And so I started training my ass off, and like I'm in really good shape now. But it was kind of like a too little, too late situation. And
Right.
like they signed all those people. I'd spent like a year and a half, even maybe, of like just kind of being a lazy bum. Like I wasn't half-assing it like in the ring, but like I was doing so little training of any kind outside the ring
Right.
that even giving an effort, it wasn't adding up. And especially when you do have all these hungry dudes that were on the roster. So
Right.
like, yeah, I'm not trying to make excuses, but like, man, I'm telling you, the
No,
salary
man.
was
Jack,
the
you
greatest
are,
thing and the worst thing. Like,
please don't, like, honestly, man, I'm not blowing sunshine up your ass. This is probably the most candid conversation I've ever had with somebody about why they didn't think they get re-signed. Right. You're totally, you're not making one excuse. You're saying the tone of what you've said to me is, if I was them at that time, I don't know if I would have re-signed.
yeah, no, but and I I want to be realistic in the situation, and I want to be making
Yeah.
excuses or blaming people, and that is how I feel exactly. Like if I was them in the office, you're running a business, you know what I mean? It's like it's not a charity, it's, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I wanted to re-sign me because even though I like towards the end, uh, like had gotten more on the ball, and I was like, trying hard and giving better performances and everything. Like, again, it was just kind of too little, too late. Like I wouldn't resign. I was like, we have too big of a
Right.
roster now. Like, thank you for the time, but like, so I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's, not to slag on AEW in any way, shape, or form, but that's a big roster now, man. Like that. I don't want to use the
Well,
word bloated, but it's big.
man, well, I don't want to just say AEW. I like it a lot, but I actually would say it's kind of loaded. Like, again, just because it's just, even with adding Rampage or whatever, and even with Dark and Elevation, I
Yeah.
still don't know if you can get everyone a match. Like, and certainly not everyone's gonna have an angle. So like, I don't want them to release anyone, because you want all that, you like them or hate them, you always want wrestlers to get paid or whatever.
Yeah. You want
But like,
everybody to be able to make their living.
when it just comes from like a booking standpoint, I don't think it's realistic to handle that. Like, you need another 5 hours of TV to get everyone
Yeah.
a decent angle on. Like, so, uh, so
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. Cause it's, once you have that many guys, and even that, like you know, not a Monday Night Raw goes by where Roman Reigns isn't there unless for some reason he's off, right? He might not wrestle,
yeah,
but he's at every Monday Night Raw. And to me, it's like, man, how am I not seeing CM Punk on every show? Because they have so many guys that are that big. It's hard to get them all in there.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
100%. And so,
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's
but
hard to produce enough content to keep everybody going. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Are you in a position now where you sort of, obviously, are you taking the bookings you want to take, or are you just taking everything? Kind of, as funny as that sounds.
And I'm kind of just taking everything right now. Like,
Right. Just seeing what's up there.
yeah. Well,
Okay,
and
so I'm
half
gonna
of
put
it, honestly, I don't want to be picky right now because, in all honesty, in the last year and a half, I'd have to look up the actual like number, but I think I've only had like 12 or 15 matches. So, and ring
okay.
rust is a thing. Ring
Yeah,
rust is
yeah,
absolutely a thing.
100%.
So, uh, and so like even though like I'm training, I'm physically on the ball, and like I'm about to show up to Ricky's Lucha Libre school and stuff. That's actually another thing. I stopped training in actual wrestling, that which was even if it's only a couple times a month. Like young wrestlers never stop actually doing the wrestling training, which is
Yeah.
something so many wrestlers do. Is you'll go to the gym, you'll do cardio, whatever. But a lot, like I'd say almost maybe a slight majority of the wrestlers, they stopped going to the wrestling training, to wrestling training. And I did that. And that's another reason I think I fell off is that I just got out of the swing of things combined with ring rust. But anyway, so like I've had such a little amount of matches that
Right.
I'm honestly in like I'll take anything mode just to get back into the swing of things. Like,
Yeah, just to get back that ring timing, hey.
mm-hmm.
Now, are you familiar with sorry, go ahead.
And because I don't know what you call it in wrestling. Like in gaming, they have like the meta, which is like the most popular way to play the game at that current time, or whatever.
Right.
And so the meta of wrestling like has changed. Because like in the early 2000s or whatever, mid 2000s when I was around, it honestly was more about like big stunts and big bumps, and then it became kind of the strong style, like hard
Right.
hitting, and then this, and then that, and then that, and like I feel like I'm kind of behind in the meta of wrestling, like. So that's another reason I want to get out there is because I got to see like how people are doing things. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. What are the kids doing these days?
yeah, what are these goddamn whippersnappers doing these days?
But well, and I mean the thing is, I think no matter what, you can still hang with anybody, right? So I don't think you got to worry about that at all.
Yeah. I have slowed down a bit though, but not in like I can still hang with everyone, but I'm definitely a little less spry than I used to be. I have to be honest with that.
Right.
So like I can still do the big shooting star bumps and everything, but I've noticed now when we start to get to like kind of like longer spot fest style matches or whatever, like I just don't have like I hit the ropes with that same burst and come back. Da, da, da. So like I can do mostly all the same stuff, but I definitely have lost a little bit of that like, and I don't know if that's just from age or just from being off for so long, whatever. So
Well, I think
that's
some
even
of it's a
another thing. I
little.
gotta test out where I'm at in wrestling.
Well, you've worked a high risk style, right? So some of it's probably just age. I mean, you naturally just start kind of slowing down. Like they say with boxers, the last thing to go is the power. You'll start losing your speed, you'll start losing your timing a bit, but the power is the last thing to go.
Okay,
Right.
well,
So you'll still be able to hit those big flips and stuff because you still have all the power in your legs. You can still rotate and things like that.
yeah, okay, that's exactly how. Then I think that applies to me as much as I want to admit it. Because like I can still do like a standing twisting moonsault or whatever,
Yeah.
but it is those like quick like duck
Yeah. The
jump. Da, da, da,
explosion to
da, da,
get to the ropes.
yeah. Like that. That's kind of. I think I have slowed a step in that way.
Yeah. I try and
But
explode like
actually,
if I try running.
if any promoters are listening, I'm just joking. That's an absolute lie. I'm talking crap right now.
I feel great. My knees are 100%.
Actually, I don't have that bad a knee. Like I do have a little bit of problem with my right one, but what I developed over, and this is my fault, 100%. There was actually a gymnast dude, I can't remember his name, in Calgary, way back in the day that told me this. Is he's like, you land so hard when you flip, like you don't have a light landing, and you're
Okay.
gonna mess up ankles from that. And it did happen. Like I've now, and I had to get ankle surgery and stuff from, but
Is that
whatever.
right?
But
Hey?
but yeah, so for me, it wasn't my knees that went. It actually ended up being my ankles that I don't want to say they went, but they're definitely they're what's aged the most. Like,
Well, I think that's where I'm going to be honest with you. A climate like Mexico is kind of protecting you because if you come up here and you get down into that like -10, -15 Celsius,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like your knees are like we can swear on the show if you want, but your knees will literally like you'll walk out the front door, your knees just look right up, and you're like, man, fuck you. Like,
yeah. And well, I think that's true because in when I go to visit Washington during the winter, it's not Calgary
oh,
level cold, but
Oh,
it
but
is
that
cold.
humidity,
And, like,
man.
well, I feel stiffer when I was
Yeah.
in Washington in the cold. Like
No, man, we
that's
get
one of
cold, but
the things.
that's cold to the bone. That's even a different thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know what? Actually, Calgary does get a weird cold. I don't know if you're talking about like the Chinooks when the wind comes or anything like that, but like it's cold, but it's like I don't know how to explain it, but this warmer cold.
Yeah.
Because when I went to Toronto and like it wasn't even in the negative temperatures or anything like I had experienced a couple times in Calgary, but it was the coldest cold I've ever experienced, even though it wasn't as cold. Like I don't know how to explain it. I sound ridiculous right now.
No, man,
But
it's the
Calgary does
humidity.
get
I'm
a
telling you,
weird
it's the
kind of
humidity
cold.
in
Like,
those places. It's dry here. Same with,
yeah,
when people talk
Calgary's dry
about,
as hell, man.
yeah, when people talk about
Yeah.
Arizona, right? Like, oh, it's a dry heat. So it's, if you got 40 degrees in Mexico City, how fucking hot does that feel?
Oh, it would be hot. But no, where 4 hours from here is Acapulco, and it has super high levels of humidity and tropical weather style. Like it's hot
Right.
most of the time. I just got stung by a stingray down there. Actually, that was but yeah,
Was that the one I saw on your
humidity is
foot?
huh?
Did you step right on it? Was that in your foot, on your heel?
Yeah, yeah, right on my heel. It was the most surprising thing ever to me because I wasn't even that far out from like the coast or whatever. And but even though it's usually hot in Acapulco, on this day it was actually a little bit cold. And the doctor lady that gave me like these injections for I don't want to call it venom. I don't know if it's necessarily venom, but like it puts something in you that stings in a weird way because like the pain went all the way up the side of my leg. But she
Really?
was saying that during cold weather, they come closer to the beach. So that's
Oh,
probably why I got stung. But it was one of the most shocking and surprising moments of my life. I will say that. I was like, when it happened, I felt for just a second something weird under my foot. And like a split second later, like just that like the stab of it or whatever. And
right.
then like like a deer in headlights for good like 2 seconds, 1001, 1002. Like it doesn't seem that long, but after getting stabbed by stingray, I swear it is. But like I like my brain couldn't process what was happening. I was like, what the like oh
Well, because you just don't think you're gonna get stung by a stingray on the foot.
no, yeah. Like I obviously knew of stingrays, but I had never known like shuffle your feet kind of against the sand because you'll kick them out of the way and they'll just go, don't step. And
Oh.
this beach is populated and like and with kids and stuff. So I just it didn't even cross my mind that it'd be any kind of animal that could sting you out there. But yeah,
Right. See, that's why I stay out of the ocean, man. Won't even go in there. Forget about it.
yeah, I'm except for like the shallowest parts, like where there's some wet sand. I'll maybe make my sand castle for my kids or something. But I'm
Right.
done with you myself. Okay, like you win, ocean, you win. Because there was another time in Acapulco, and of course it was me being stupid as always. They put up these red flags in a certain zone. I like to just go like not too deep, but kind of deep, where the
Right.
waves are a bit big, and just have them crash onto me. Like I can just do that all day.
Okay.
Well, they put these red flags in this certain area, like, and that means do not go there. Like the waves are powerful and everything.
Oh
And I was like,
shit.
look, they're not that crazy at all, and they weren't. But what there was, what I think it's called a riptide, that
Oh.
force that sucks you back in or whatever, that was going really strong. So
Oh.
there was like I was out there for a good like 15 minutes, just the waves hit me again, like he. And then this one wave came, and it was I just said the stingray was the most shocking moment. No, this was the most shocking moment. Out of nowhere, somehow the waves hit each other in a certain way where it created this giant, it felt like a tsunami, but it had to have gone 7 to 8 feet tall. And the waves were not even close to that. But like they're big waves, you know what I mean, for like normal, but they're nothing crazy. But just
Right.
out of nowhere, this huge wave formed. And right when I saw it, I'm looking up, like it was one of those moments when they have that meme. It's like it's at that moment he knew he fucked up. And that's exactly because I'm like, man, maybe 9 feet, but I don't want to exaggerate. But it was just so huge, so much taller than me, and
Wow.
it smashed into me and like with a force I've never felt. Like it moved every molecule of my body with no resistance almost. But
Right.
then I just felt the worst, like ripping me back in towards the ocean. And it rolled me like across the ground. Like I got scraped up a little bit from like the little seashells or something that are on the ground of
Holy.
the ocean. And then so when I finally got up, that one wave had sucked me so far from the shore, but I was still like, oh, I can swim back. It's fine. I tried to swim back. That riptide, I think it's called the riptide, if we're using the right
Yeah,
word.
no, you're right.
It was bringing me every wave. It would bring me back further than I could swim. So like, and like I tired myself out, like paddling my ass off for like 2 minutes. And I was like, man, I've lost ground. I'm not making ground. And so I had to do the help, help, da, 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 da. And then like finally my wife saw me and she got the lifeguards and they came out and got me. And they're like, if that ever happens again, you gotta like swim diagonally, don't swim against them. So I was like, I don't think I would have made it. Like, but like if those lifeguards hadn't saved me, I 100% think I would have drowned because like I could not swim against that riptide. Like I'm talking, I was just kidding. I'm not the best swimmer, but I'm not the absolute worst. Like I know the basics at least.
Right.
So I was just thinking it was going to be, I just swim back, and like no, it wasn't. Like I kept getting sucked out further than I make it, and so I was freaking out.
No kid, that story made me so anxious. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
no.
That's wild.
So yeah, between that and the stingray, you win, Ocean. You win. I surrender.
Yeah, I'm out. Yeah,
White
actually,
flag is ready.
yeah, I won't bore you with the entire story, but I tried going snorkeling in the ocean a couple of years ago. I was down by, I tried snorkeling in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was down by Belize, so I wanted to see the barrier reef. I'm not kidding you, man. The minute my ass hit that water, my heart rate probably went from 80, 90 beats a minute to about 150. Instant panic. I was not in that water for more than a minute before I was back on the boat.
Oh yeah, you just didn't like the ocean, or was there something?
No, man,
specific?
I will never. Like I just have always been scared of it.
You know what I don't want to call it scary, but almost like this creepy feeling I get from the ocean. What is when you look out and you just see nothing, like nothing, it's endless. Like there's no end to it. I don't know why that always gives me an uncomfortable feeling where it's just like obviously there's something on the other side, but like it looks like there's nothing, like it just goes on forever. There's something I've never really liked about that. Like,
well, I went on a cruise a couple of years ago, and it's something I said I'd never do. So I was like, okay, I got to do it. Face your fear, because I've always been really scared of it. And for the most part, I was pretty cool until one night I went out on the deck at night, and it's just a hard rail and dark ocean. You can't see. There's nothing. You're just like, if something happens, that's it.
Yeah, you're done. 100%.
Yeah, so I'm super uncomfortable in the ocean.
Yeah. I actually think I'd be too afraid to get on the rail of a cruise, just because, like you said, like I don't know, you're drunk, you fall over, and just no one sees you. Like even if someone does see you,
I was
like,
just gonna say, even if they do see you, man, it'd be so hard to find you out there. Yeah. So yeah, that's that's you know what? Now that we've scared the shit out of people, I think that's a good way to end. What dates do you have coming up?
If you go on the Jericho cruise, you get some life insurance, because the ocean is remorseless.
That's right. She's a fickle mistress.
Yes.
What dates you got coming up, man?
I've got May 28th in Las Vegas, 29th May 27th in Las Vegas, 28th and 29th in Portland. And then in June, on the 17th, I will be in Ohio, I believe it is. And then the 18th, New York.
Nice. Hey, I'm going to ask you this last question real quick. Are you familiar with Michael Richard Blaze?
Michael Richard, it sounds super familiar.
Okay, man, I'm going to send you some links. You have to see this kid's work. And I'm going to personally go to the local promoters that I really don't even have rapport with anymore. And I'm going to tell them they got to book you versus Michael Richard Blaze. You two will tear the house down.
Okay, yeah, send me some links. I feel like someone might have sent me some highlights of them or something, because it sounds familiar, but
yeah, he did a Spanish fly off the top rope to the outside through a table, and it was perfect.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, send me some links, dude. Will
do, brother. Man, thank you so much for talking with me. I had such a good time.
Yeah, no, it was good reminiscing about those old Calgary days.
Yeah, it was really good to see you, man. And congratulations on all your success, man. You went on from, a humble beginning to become a really big star, and you're still, very down to earth, very cool guy, and I really appreciate that about you.
Oh, no, no problem. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
See you later.
Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth.